Hey, good evening, everybody.
Evening.
Hey, Michael.
We will now open the meeting, calling the meeting to order. And I am Michael Jones, Chair. And I am present. Olivia, are you with us? Mary is with us, I guess, for just a short time, Mary?
Yes. So once it comes to approving the agenda, we may want to move it and do action items first.
Yes. Gershom
Here.
and Larry.
Here.
And we have Daniel and Josh from the staff. And Miss Emily Anderson, welcome. And I see Nick. Hi, Nick.
Hey, good evening, Michael.
And Ana Leonor.
Hello, everybody.
Oh, then
Hey,
we have some other people, Coral, Emily, and Imelda. Welcome to the meeting. Okay. And can I have a motion to approve the agenda and move, well, let's see. Want to approve the agenda with moving any action items to the front so that Mary can be here to vote.
Can I make one comment? YMC was unable to get the staff handbook back to us, so that's gonna have to be removed
that'll be
and
tabled.
placed on the August agenda.
Hey, that may be me. Hold on.
Okay.
Yep, I think it was you,
Mary?
Michael. Yep.
That's not it yet. Here we go. Hold on. Okay, how about now? No,
Sounds good.
It does sound good.
We can hear you fine.
no, I'm glad you can hear me. I can't hear myself. Oh, there we go. Everybody there?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, good. You were saying, Josh?
That we'll need to table the staff handbook, and that'll be placed on the agenda for August 2nd, I think is the next board meeting.
Okay. So do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move approval of the agenda with the tabling, as Josh had said, of the student handbook.
And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Larry? Michael votes yes. Mary, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gershom?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Okay, public comment. Anybody want to make a comment on something that is not on the agenda? Emily?
She's on mute.
You're on mute, Emily.
Yeah, sorry, I had multiple screens going and like dragging the mouse over to unmute myself under pressure. It was an issue.
I can relate. I went through the same thing just a minute ago.
Yeah, so I have 3 or 4 comments that I'd like to read that teachers commented on the board notes from time before last from the June 1st meeting, if that's okay.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, there's been a lot of interest around air conditioning and getting air conditioning up and running for the 21-22 school year. I'm just going to read these verbatim if that's okay. Soaring temperatures and the greenhouse effect in classrooms have long been an issue for classroom management and focus, especially during testing season. I am so relieved that our working and learning conditions will be brought into the 21st century with this upgrade. So that was regarding working towards air conditioning goals. The next was in response to the head of school report from June 1st, specifically around teacher turnover and teacher retention. And this is from Ali Sickler, who is an ELA teacher and 7 years at SABA. What is the metric for goal met for staff turnover and how is it determined? 9 departing staff members is a huge blow for such a small institution, especially when many are long-serving teachers. Last year at our SEP meeting, staff turnover was identified as the main precipitating factor for SABA's challenges. For instance, it's difficult to maintain curricular and cultural alignment with a revolving door of colleagues. Time and money invested in training a faculty or integrated ELD or PBIS, for example, is lost when those teachers are replaced, leaving remaining teachers with the task of informally onboarding new staff members without support, which in turn hurts morale. Board policies have a direct impact on this turnover. What concrete action items will school leadership and the board take to mitigate that impact this year? So this was in response to staff retention that was cited in the head of school report.
Emily, can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Sure.
Mary, how long do you have with us?
Till 5:50.
5:50.
I just have
Usually-
one more and then I'm done and it'll be real quick.
Okay. Very good. Thanks.
The last one was just, I believe, in response to the sports proposal. So I can talk about that then.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. And sorry for interrupting you. Any other comments not related to the agenda?
The only comment I would make is that while you still have me here, Michael, just a reminder that you, at the end of the meeting, are trying to get a date for the retreat. So it'd be useful to have Mary's eyeballs on that too.
Oh, thank you for that reminder. So let's head into action items. Going to the consent agenda first. Anything there that people want to pull out to discuss?
Nope.
Not seeing any. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move approval of the consent agenda without item E, which was tabled.
I'll second.
Michael votes yes. Mary, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gershom, how do you vote?
Yes.
Larry, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, the consent agenda is approved with the exception of item E, which was pulled off. All right. And then we have reports. So I guess the item that Nick brought up, the date for the staff or board retreat would be what we want to talk about. Josh, do you have any ideas on when you want to schedule it?
A Saturday morning is what I was thinking. So the date that caught my attention was possibly the 7th of August, but really I'd be open to any Saturday during the month of August. The purpose of this meeting is to establish goals and objectives both for me and for SABA overall for the upcoming school year.
7th works for me.
I'm looking.
I'm out I'm out of town the following week, so weekend. So,
I can't do the 7th or the 14th.
okay, let's see, I think I can do the 21st.
I could do the 21st in the morning.
Was it an all-day affair or is it just the morning?
Just the morning.
What time frame, Josh?
I was thinking either 8 to 12 or 9 to 12.
I can do either.
Yeah, me too.
I can too.
Yeah, it should be fine.
All right, let's do 8 to 12. I'll bring breakfast.
On the 21st, correct?
Correct.
We're gonna do this in person?
Yes. And on that note, we are going to be coming back to in-person board meetings come October.
Yay,
I love it.
All right.
I do
So-
too. Good.
So do we settle on the 21st?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll send out an invite to you all.
Okay, cool.
Josh, does this mean you're giving up your office?
No, well, we have to be 6 feet apart, but still be in person.
All righty, we got that
Yay.
nailed down.
Yep.
Anything else that
Excellent.
we need, that we need to attend to while we have Mary with us?
Well, I think one thing that was a little bit confused there, the consent agenda covers A, items 1, 2, and 3. And then the rest of the action items, B, C, D, and then E was tabled, were just approvals for
Oh,
our SIS grad requirements and family handbook.
yeah, I got confused when she mentioned E. So E was not part of the consent agenda.
Yeah, because it all falls under the action items number 2. That's why I was,
Well, except the consent agenda,
I see what you're saying. Yeah, because
Yeah.
they're all actions, but the consent is only there. I see what you're saying.
Right.
Okay.
So
Got
we
it.
still have 7 minutes with Mary. Let's go back to action
Dun,
item,
dun, dun.
action item B, EduPoint Synergy invoice.
okay, this one, $31,000. This is gonna be the first time that Sabre breaks away from PBUSD to have our own Synergy account completely. We're in the process of implementing this, and I am requesting that the board approve this $31,000 payment to EduPoint, who is the owner of Synergy.
And Josh, that 17.8 is a one-time implementation cost, right? So the out
Yes.
years will be.
Yep, so take 17 off of that, so it'll be,
So you're going through the transition of Synergy right now then? Because so are we.
oh, yeah, so basically, they make a duplicate of everything, and then as we've sorted it all out, then they erase the original. So that's how we're doing it, but it's arduous for sure.
Okay, I move approval.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Michael votes yes. Mary, oh, you vote. Mary, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gershom
Yes.
and Larry.
yes.
Motion passes. Let's move on to 21-22 grad requirements.
I'm
Josh,
sorry, who motioned real quick?
I
Mary
did.
did.
Okay, 21-22 grad requirements, just a few subtle changes. So English, we're continuing with 40 credits or 4 total years. History, social science, we do 4 total years, which is more than traditional 3. That's because we include geography as a required course, students freshman year. Math, we're at 30 or 3 years. Science, 30 from 2 different disciplines, so both life and physical. 2 years of Spanish, Spanish 1 and Spanish 2. 1 year of art, art 1 and art 2 when we have it. And then electives, we had 1 elective per year, and now because of the changes in the schedule, we're just asking 10 credits that will be completed, but they don't have to be in each year is basically what we're asking for. So you might complete 2 credits in one particular year, but 0 in another. And then the senior project is going to be 1 semester rather than 1 year. And then health will be 1 year.
Is there any particular reason why some were changed? Is there like current law of some
So
sort?
yeah, good question. Yeah, so a few changes we made. We've always had 8 classes at the high school level, and this coming year we've changed it to mostly 6, and we're having math and English every day. There was a sentiment that 8 classes was too many, and so the students, instead of having 4 classes one day and 4 classes another, they'll have 6 total, 4 on one day and then 4 on the other, but 2 of those will be just daily. So that is the reason for the change in the electives. The senior project, it went from a full year course down to a spring semester course, and that was in part of the course changes that occurred. And then health was increased to a year, thinking about as we come back to school, we want to have a focus on wellness, and health standards really hit that well.
Okay.
So that's why we did that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from anyone?
Yes, I do. Is there a difference as far as, I mean, I noticed the requirements for SAVA, and then on the sheet below, it says California minimum
Mhm.
requirements. Can I get an explanation as to why does it say all the way on the bottom, additional courses, physical education, 2 years, but we don't have any on our SAVA requirements?
So the minimum requirements for the state of California require mandate 2. SABA as a charter school is not mandated to have a PE requirement as part of our high school graduation requirements. We do always offer PE to 9th graders, or we have for at least the last 6 years, and we will continue to do that this year. But we have never had that as part of our graduation requirements.
So I don't know if I have mentioned this kind of concern that I've always had, especially as more years go by with, kids just having more social media, more video games, more of not doing any activity at home. And kind of going back to, my high school years, and kids are still kids. They have lots of energy. I understand totally SAVA is, totally focused on let's get the education, a priority, which I totally agree, don't get me wrong. But I feel that having the kids sitting in the classroom without burning all this energy, it just becomes more problematic as more time goes by. So I would kind of, at some point like to see something like bringing more activity for the kids to go out there and just burn that energy. I used to love having PE definitely before lunch during high school. So the first 4 periods of the day were amazing to get all that energy out, because believe it or not, you were tired and you would probably concentrate more because you didn't have all this energy to move around, talk around, and the teacher being interrupted. That is just my personal feeling. So that's more of a comment than anything else that, for the future, if we could somehow get more activity for the kids.
Yeah,
And it might be-
so
Oh, I was
Gershom,
just
I
gonna,
think,
sorry, go ahead.
oh, no.
I was going to say that it could be a conversation piece for our board training as well. If you wanted to have a little more discussion around it, that would be a good place to start.
It's a great idea.
Sorry, Josh.
It's okay.
Yeah, but
What I was gonna say is we don't have to wait until the grad requirements are approved for next year to implement more activity at SABA. So I think the thrust of it is like, let's get the students moving, and how can we get creative about using the space and activities to get them out and moving. And I think that's something we can do internally, talk about that and implement that even for this coming school year, regardless of whether it's in a grad requirement or not.
Right.
I would also like to add to have a greater focus in the arts. I think we're always lacking in that area, performing arts and such things. Like, I know we're limited in space, but let's not forget about that.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm going to sign off.
Thank you, Mary.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you. Take care, you guys.
Thank you.
For the recording, I will note that we've lost Mary as one of our voting members, but we still have a quorum with Gershom, Michael, and Larry. Other comments regarding the grad requirements? Okay, noting the concerns related to the role of PE and arts in the SABA program overall, which we will address at a board training or at the board retreat. Do I have a motion to approve the 21-22 grad requirements?
So moved.
Thank you, Larry. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Gershom. Michael votes yes. Gershom, how do you vote?
Yes.
Larry, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, let's move on to the 21-22 Student Family Handbook. Mr. Rip.
Okay, so the student family handbook is updated to reflect a few things. First, our new bell schedule with classes beginning at 8:30 and then fast 40 beginning at 3:45 and getting done at 4:25. So that is all within the handbook. We also have a short COVID-19 response, which basically gives us the liberty to adjust policies in this handbook as needed in response to COVID-19, should that become a concern. We also have a new uniform policy. And so during the summer, we had kind of an open market on the large turf to show off and encourage students to buy new uniforms. It went really well. We had, I think 3,000 or 4,000 articles purchased in like a 3-week time period. So, but the new uniform policy is embedded within this handbook. And then the rest of the additions were tweaks to homeless children and youth, foster mobile youth. And so we'll have a homeless and foster youth liaison who will be Sandra Gutierrez. She's our new co-director of MTSS, and she'll be in that role and leading that were some of the major highlights in this year's 21-22 handbook.
What is MTSS?
Multi-tiered system of supports.
Oh,
So that's all the
Alrighty.
highlights I have. I mean, then the rest of it fairly stable from year to year in terms of the contents of this 21-22 handbook.
Is the 8:30 start new? Is that different than?
Correct. So state mandated for all high schools beginning next year, 22-23. We did it this year because we're coming out of COVID and it was a good transition time to do that. And we're going to do that for both middle school and high school.
So is that later or earlier?
It's later. We originally started at 7:45. Now we start at 8:30.
Oh, they should like that. How do the parents do with that? I know many parents have to get to work by 8. Does that impact your kids?
Yeah, I think, it's going to be a concern. I was asking we had orientations last week and I'd stop and ask, and, no one vocalized a concern at the orientations, but I know we'll see that come up. And so we're thinking about ways we can either have activities or breakfast or things we can do for students who arrive early, so they're not just left hanging here for an extended period of time with nothing to do.
When do your yard duty supervisors show up for work? Or when do they begin supervising?
We're still working on our duty schedule, but if we were trying to use the same reference, so last year it was 7, everyone would show up to begin school at 7:45. So if we're saying 45 minutes ahead of time, it would be 7:45. I'd kind of like to push that back to at least 7:30. So everyone would need to be here by 7:30 for anyone that arrives then. And that's what we were communicating out to families.
Yeah, we had an intractable problem at my old school where the school day started around 8:55, say 9 o'clock, and kids were being dropped off at 7. And we kept trying to treat it as a problem. And finally, we just bit the bullet and provided the supervision and opened up breakfast earlier, and everybody's happy.
Okay. We
Anyway.
may end up doing that here as well.
All right. Any comments regarding the student family handbook?
I have some concerns around the pushback fast 40 for winter time, just because it gets dark so early. Have we thought about that at all? Kids are walking home 4:30, 4:45.
No, we want to just be consistent with the fast 40 times. So we have it at the end of the school day. If we were to put fast 40, say at the beginning of the school day, which would be another option, we could discuss that and come up with a decision as a team to implement that. But the handbook is currently stated says fast 40s after school.
And parents didn't express any concerns about the timing of that?
Parents did not.
Okay. I was wondering if you could give me, I'm still trying to conceptualize what the MTSS people are doing. Could you give me like a 1-sentence description of what their job is?
Yes. Multi-tiered system of supports looks at student supports through the lenses of academics, behavior, and social emotional supports. And so the MTSS directors are going to develop supports in each of those core areas. And this is going to be really PD next week. For day one's going to be academics. Day two is going to be behavior. Day three is going to be social emotional. And so we have a behavior matrix for day two, and we're going to talk about PBIS. Day three, we have conflict resolution and circles and a number of things that we're going to do for social emotional supports. And then day one, we're going to be looking at academics, particularly curriculum, and supporting our, different students.
Cool. So is it going to be like they are training teachers to do those things, or they're working directly with the students, or both?
Both.
Both. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
How many MTSS staff members are we talking about?
2.
2. Is it high school and middle school, or is it divided differently?
Right now it's looking like one might be more behavioral focused and another might be more academic focused, but I'm hesitant to just kind of put them in one. It's a layered systematic approach, so I don't want to have it just be compartmentalized into different, like we're going to talk about this next week, into different frameworks where it's only one person doing one thing and only one person doing another.
And this is a new program this year?
Yes.
Yeah, I would I would like to ask that you put that on a future agenda to perhaps have a presentation on the program and what it looks like, and maybe hear how it's starting off.
Okay.
Great. Sounds like a great program. Do you have student study teams at SEBA?
Yeah, that's part of the PD next week, is we're tweaking that process for the upcoming school year.
And that would integrate the MTSS folks?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Great. Any other comments or questions for Josh regarding the student family handbook?
I just want to make a comment. I'm a parent of a 7th and 8th grader. My name is Imelda. Regarding the fast 40 that I believe it was Emily commented on, when they do the exploration about offering fast 40 in the morning, can we ask the parents and maybe see what they think? Because I know an issue will be, because most of us have to get to work before like 7:30 or 8 o'clock. So maybe an option would be to offer fast 40 in the morning, since they were used to it coming in earlier. Just bringing parents in and getting their feedback and see if they would like to have fast 40 in the morning rather than in the afternoon. Just a comment.
Thanks, Imelda.
So can we include that as an item on the next agenda as well, to hear what you've come up with in that regard? Sounds like it's an issue.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Imelda. Any other comments? Thank you, Emily. All righty. Do I have a motion to approve the student family handbook?
I'll motion.
Thanks, Gershom. Larry?
Second.
You second? Michael approves. Gershom, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Larry, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Let's move on to the SEBA staff handbook. Josh?
That was the agenda
Oh, that's
item.
what we pulled.
That was Caleb.
Yeah, that'll be on the next agenda.
Yes.
That's why I put the little box around the E. Okay. Let's move on to reports. Do we have Valerie with us tonight?
No, but I'll do a brief overview of the summary that was presented with the budget through May 31st. So this looks back. I know
Can
last.
I jump in? Do you want me to share my screen?
If you don't mind. I don't know if we want me to go through all the pages or not. I can just read the summary.
Okay.
Okay. So last month at the special board meeting, sorry I missed it, we presented the July budget for this 21-22 school year. This budget is supposed to look back at our finances from the beginning of 2021 school year all the way through the end of May 31st. So to summarize, SEBA is projected to end the school year with a cash balance of 2.66 million. We say that's projected because these are through May 31st. We haven't fully reconciled all of June yet. Once that's done, we'll bring an update at the next board meeting for the June finances, and then in September we will have looked at that, bring forward the unaudited actuals for review and approval by the board. The cash balance of 2.66 million is 37% of our annual expenditures. That represents about 5 months of cash on hand. I know we had talked about having a goal of having at least 2 months of cash on hand to cover expenses. So we look good there. The expenses are tracking right along with the second interim budget. Like I said, the estimated actuals were presented in the July 21-22 budget. We anticipate expenditures of $7,239,000, and this aligns with the second interim budget of $7,247,000. This update does reflect that we did get approval from Santa Cruz County Bank for the payroll protection program loan forgiveness of $806,000. That was really huge. We weren't expecting any update on that until around the next school year. Santa Cruz County Bank had been inundated with a lot of the second round of payroll protection stimulus, but we did get an update in May that, or recently, that we were approved and we will receive full forgiveness for the $106,000 that we got as a loan. So SEBA projects to end the year with a budget surplus of 1.3 million and an ending fund balance, thank you Josh, of 5.29 million. Like I said, the next financial update will go through the June 30th expenses in the August board meeting, and then at the September 7th meeting we'll go through the unaudited actuals for the full 2020-2021 fiscal year. And that's all I have. If anybody has any questions about any of the line items in the budget presentation, let me know.
It sounds like we're sitting pretty, which is nice. 5 months of cash, thanks to the PPP loan. I remember with the first PPP loan, there was some static out there in the world regarding charter schools getting PPP loans. Whatever happened to that conversation? That seemed to fade away, at least from my perspective. But what is your perspective from the front line?
I think that's something that I'll ask Valerie, but I mean, from us directly, we didn't really hear anything from our bank around any questions or really from anybody directly on the outside from us.
Great.
Any other questions?
I think just the highlight here is that we pretty much have a 5-month reserve throughout the entire school year in terms of cash flows. At some point this year, we could talk about this at the retreat. Maybe we could set up a reserve policy that Daniel mentioned earlier, where we have 2 to 3 months. That's the minimum that we'll do.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's good to track. We haven't yet received all of our state funding. Specifically the LCFF funds, the in lieu of property tax revenues. Those typically don't finish coming in until July or August. We still have the deferrals of the LCFF revenues, so we'll continue to track that and hopefully have most of it closed out by September so that we can have that updated in our unaudited actuals.
All righty. Any other questions regarding the financial update? Let's move on to the operations report.
Daniel?
Great. So I have a very quick update. I'm going to present my screen here. Share screen. Which one? That one. Okay. So we've been getting the building ready to get back to school on the 22nd. That's next Thursday. What that means is I didn't get a ton of pictures. I didn't get any pictures I added to this anyway. Is we're getting the classroom set back up. Last school year, with being able to have cohorts of students, we had only about 8 to 12 desks for most of the year that were all spread apart in all the classrooms. So with some of the updated guidance from CDC and the California Department of Public Health, we've been given the green light to get our classrooms more or less back to normal. We still have to respect 6 foot of distancing from the teachers, from the teacher / the adult to the students. Otherwise, everybody must be wearing masks, and we're able to set our classrooms back up closer to normal. So a lot of that was getting done. I don't know if a lot of you have been into our building while we were in mostly distance learning last year, but we did have a ton of our furniture out here in the auditorium right in the front of the school. It was kind of unsightly, I think. So I'm glad we're getting back to being able to put all the furniture back in their rightful place. The building looks great. We got the carpets deep cleaned. We got our floors resealed. We got some landscape work done outside of the building, pressure wash. We got the air filters all replaced actually today. So we're getting back to getting our building fully ready for instruction next week. The other thing that I wanted to give an update on is our remodel project, where we're installing a curb and new storefront windows to prevent water intrusion in our staff lounge area at that corner of the building, as well as doing some renovations in our staff lounge and adding a lactation room. So a couple of quick photos for you here. So they finished pouring this curb right here. They put in the new storefront windows. We're waiting, I think, for the end of this week, right, Josh? For them to install the glass in the storefront windows. For now, they have this barrier to protect the facility. Whoops. So the next one's interior view. You can see there's no glass here yet, but new storefront windows, that curb poured in. They finished all the casework on the inside in the staff lounge. So this will allow us to have a little bit more counter space on the inside, as well as updating a few electrical items so that we can have more than one microwave in our staff lounge. Everything's looking great. We got new VCT tile flooring. And then the next is the lactation room. Please ignore the books. I think they just put them there because they were there in what was previously an office. So here we'll have some space to use for whoever's in there to use it as workspace. They have the sink. There will be a small fridge below the countertop here, and then a microwave right here. In addition to this, we'll also have a little bit of furniture inside the room for whoever may use it for our new lactation room. That's all I have. They expect to finish most of this interior work at the end of this week, and then next week kind of just clean it all up and make it ready for our school to resume.
So there was a question earlier or a comment regarding air conditioning. Is the air conditioning installed?
No. So part of that process was we are working with our architect to get an assessment of our current electrical capacity to do so. And in order to do that, we have to expand our electrical capacity. So over the summer, we weren't able to meet up with them to get a full proposal to get the work done. So that's the first step in being able to upgrade our air conditioning in the whole building. So Josh and I have it on our calendar this week to meet with the architect, figure out what exactly needs to get done. They have a proposal for us to expand our current electrical capacity. It would require us to basically stretch our current electrical closet either outside or out on the inside of our building, where it would take up a little bit of our landscape for our multi-purpose room. So we're going to be looking at that with them, and then following that, figure out if we can get that done. We'd probably bring a proposal to the board, and then the air conditioning would probably be a conversation that has to happen after we get all that lined up. Thanks for the
yeah, that's unfortunate. It's not in place and ready to go. I think that so far this summer, Watsonville and where I live up here in Aptos, we've sort of.
Your audio stopped working, Michael.
Well,
There you
You're
are.
Oh,
saying
now it is working.
in
that's
Aptos.
working. Yeah, I'm just saying that if we have a hot spell, it's going to be very hot, and I would imagine trying to work in that type of environment in a building would be challenging and uncomfortable. So anything we can do to expedite that project, I would encourage.
Yep.
Hi, this is Christina. I have a quick question if you guys have a moment.
Sure.
For two questions, well, one suggestion, one question. First question is for the lactation room, would that be available for students as well or just staff?
Anyone who needs it for lactation purposes may use the room.
Perfect. And my second question is in regards to the AC. I totally, it is getting hotter every year, every summer. I know in regards to the electrical, that can be very costly for the entire facility. Have you guys looked at alternative items such as solar power and single centered ACs per room versus, so if somebody's not in a room, the AC is not going on, such as like the ones that they have in the hotel rooms. And I can't remember what they're called, but have you guys looked at other alternatives other than a full HVAC unit, which is very costly, not environmentally safe, to be honest, and electrical, solar powered?
Yeah, in terms of the solar power, we haven't really explored further adding solar capacity. We did have.
Let's be clear. We have solar capacity. It's here. It did not increase the electrical capacity that's required to install AC. And so what we're working with the engineers now to do is to increase the electrical capacity, which is independent from whether we have solar or not. And we do have solar. And so this project is underway. We've hit a few speed bumps along the way. We thought we would be able to have 2 transformers here. PG&E says, no, we don't do that. So now we're back to the drawing board. We also need to have a larger space than we originally anticipated to place these transformers. And so we're working that out. We're not going to have AC in the fall, but it is on the list of things to get done. And we knew that this was going to kind of be a lengthier process to get just the basic electrical needs in place before we can actually go into putting that into the HVAC system. The good thing is we do have the frame on the roof to support HVAC, and they have looked at that. And once we are there and we do have the electrical capacity, the actual installation will not be as challenging as this first part.
Yeah, and when we did start this process, we were told the ability for our HVAC contractor to do an installation would be kind of hampered by their schedule. They've had a lot of installation, so that's another challenge for us, just getting on the schedule in a timely manner.
Okay. Anything else regarding the operations report? Okay, let's move to the head of school report.
All right. Let me get this over here. Okay, so this report is reflective of STAR data. So this is Renaissance STARs in an exam that we administered 3 times during the school year last year. And we were fortunate to have done this because the state came out and said that you could either administer the SBAC in the spring or the STAR. And so we ended up using the STAR data, and we did not administer the SBAC CASP exam to finish the school year. So the first thing we're going to look at here is reading and English language arts. So reading and English language arts, we see the grade levels 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 along the horizontal axis. And then the 4 colors are students scoring 75th percentile and above in the lightest shade green, and then 50th to 74th percentile below that, the 25th to 49th percentile, and then below the 25th percentile is the darkest green shade. And so as we go through the different bar charts here, what we see is that over 50%, in many cases over 60% of our students scored below the 25th percentile on the STAR reading test last year. End of year assessment by grade level equivalent bands. So here we're talking about now the dark green is far below. That means 3 or more grade levels below. And then near is going to be within 3 grade levels. At is literally at the grade level. And then above is 1 or more grade levels above. And so we can see that in 6th grade, we had a high percentage of students near grade level. And then as we go up through the grades, we'll see that by 11th grade, we have 59% far below grade level, 18% within grade level, near grade level, and then 3% at, and then 20% above. And so what this is indicating is that we have a lot of work to do with our reading scores for this upcoming school year. If we were to apply the STAR in a kind of an SBAC format where there's scores of 1 to 4, we can see this would be a level 1, the darkest shade green. Level 2 would be the lighter shade green, 3 lighter shade yet, and then 4 would be the lightest shade green across the top. And so typically when you look at SBAC CASP scores that are level 3 or level 4 are considered proficient. So if we look at grade 6, from fall to spring to end of year, what we'll see, we'll see that by the end of the year, about 21% of our students showed proficiency, meaning that 79% of our students were below proficient according to this STAR exam. And then in 7th grade, by the end of the year, 26% were proficient, and the remainder, so 74% were below that proficient line or below level 3. And then finally in 8th grade, 27% were proficient, and then 73% were below that level 3 cutoff for proficiency. When we go on to high school, we see similar numbers. A greater percentage of our students were at the level 2 than in middle school, but still in grade 9, we saw that 24% of our students were proficient. Grade 10, 46, so that was a highlight for us. And then grade 11, 37%. Overall, the high school reading scores were stronger than the middle school. And that is our reading scores. Finally, completion of the exam. So what we can see here is that 6th grade, all of the students completed all 3 administrations of the exam. In 7th grade, 94% completion in the first administration, 97% in the second, 92% completion in the third. And then in 8th grade, 100% completion in fall and spring, and 96% completion at the end of the year. All right.
Josh, and just to clarify, this was for last school year, the 2020, 2021?
Correct.
Thank you.
Hello, it's Christina again. I have another question, and
Yeah.
maybe it's just clarification for me. Is when I seen the first slide, in my eyes, your test score should be improving over time, right? They shouldn't.
Yeah.
A 6th grader should not be coming in with a reading score of almost excellent and leave SEBA with a reading score of less than.
Yes, that
Okay,
is
so
correct.
so I'm not a big fan of standardized testing
Okay.
at all.
right.
Each child learns very differently. I have my own children, and trust me when I say they are all different.
Sure.
I have artists in the house. I have many different types of children. But when you say, or when you said, we have a lot of work to do, what does that mean? What is we have a lot of work to do? Does that mean you want to increase the scores, which at the end of the day, honestly represent not a lot in my mind, but it's, or what does that mean to you as an organization? How, if you have a lot of work to do, what does that mean?
It means that I want to see that our students are able to read at a college level by the time they're graduating from SEBA.
So if you want them to read at a college level when they leave SEBA, how can you test each child individually, not as a whole? Because every child reads differently, and if it's a time, and I'm not very familiar with his exam because I've been out of school for quite some time. Most of the reading and comprehension comes with a timestamp. Not every child is supposed to meet those guidelines when they leave, even though the score becomes less than when they started in 6th grade.
So a couple things with that. It's over time, what we want to see is that the students are growing in their reading proficiency. And when we looked at this a few years ago under the CASP SBAC framework, we did see that proficiency continually growing. This year, when we look at it, it's not ideal, but this is also a snapshot in time. So the 6th graders that you're looking at right now are not the 11th graders. So it's different students. Once we've administered this STAR exam for 7 years, then we can look at the 6th graders' performance in their grade 11 year. But right now, this is just a snapshot, and each bar chart is representing a different set of students.
Yes, I understand that part. Okay, then I'll just continue looking at these every year, see what's going on.
Okay.
One thing I would say is that it's important to understand, I think, a couple of things. I hear what you're saying in terms of not being a fan of standardized tests. Nonetheless, a standardized test offers a yardstick, a common yardstick that we can use to get an idea, an overall idea of how our students are doing. And when we see that 75% of our students are not reading where they're supposed to be, that's a serious concern. The second thing that's related to that is that as a charter school, our ability to be a charter school depends on our meeting academic goals that are set by the state of California in the areas of say language arts and math, as measured by whatever the yardstick is. In this case, it's the STAR test. In other years, it's been the SBAC test. But we have to be able to prove that our kids are improving. And if we can't do that, after 5 years, then our charter will not be renewed and SEBA will no longer be a charter school. So there's two things. One is we want kids to be proficient readers and mathematicians. And the other is that we want SEBA to be the best school it can be and to continue to serve the students of the community. So.
Emily, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just really quickly wanted to offer the teacher perspective.
Sure.
Christina, I totally hear what you're saying, and a lot of what you said resonated with me. I just want to give a little bit of background on the STAR test. So the STAR test we implemented for the first time last year. In the past, our standardized test has been the SBAC, which is the state test. And the STAR test, the reason that we did it during the pandemic was because it's only half an hour long and it can be administered remotely. So that, in my opinion, at least, I think that's a big part of why we did it. It is problematic though. There are, at least from a teacher perspective, I do think there are some problems with having a test that's only half an hour long. Normally when we assess students and we assess how much they've learned in a year, and we look at SBAC data, SBAC lasts for 3 to 4 days. It's a whole week of testing. So we're testing what we taught them in a year over the course of a week. With the SBAC, we're only getting a snapshot. So for me as a teacher, I teach 8th grade English. I really am very wary of using this as a progress monitoring tool, as using it as a tool to see what a 6th grader knew at the beginning of the year versus what they knew at the middle of the year versus what they knew at the end of the year, because it's only half an hour. So I'm looking forward to this next year once we have the kids in front of us and we can actually, I think we're going to get different results. I think we're going to get a more accurate read of what they actually know and what they don't know versus just this half an hour snapshot. So I think these numbers are really scary to look at, but I'm not entirely sure how accurate they are, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you for clarifying that.
Sure.
Thanks, Emily. All right. So now we're going to go on to math. It's the same order of slides. So here in the first slide here, we have percentile ranked by grade level, 75th percentile and above, 50th to 74th percentile, 25th to 49th, and 25th below, or below 25th percentile. And you can see the 4 colors on each of these bar charts. And then students are in each of these. So as we dig a little bit deeper, we can see that the numbers of students far below grade level in math, according to this previous year's STAR administration, were significantly lower than what they were in reading. So that was encouraging to see that. We also see a significant jump in the number of students who are above grade level in math in the STAR exam. And so you can see that top band, the lightest color green for 7th and 8th grade was, 51 and 55% of the students. Then we see that again in 10th grade. And even 9th and 11th, nearly half of our students were at that above grade level for the grade equivalent bands. If we go a step further, if we put this into SBAC terms, so to speak, we'll see that the percentage of students who are proficient, as if we were to do a translation from the STAR scores to the SBAC scores, we'll see 17% of our students were, quote, proficient in at the beginning of the year. By the end of the year, grade 6, only 7% were. At the beginning of the grade 7, we had about 32% of our students proficient. And then by the end of the year, 30, so fairly static there. And then 8th grade, 45% of our students were proficient. And by the end of the year, 46 were. So again, fairly static numbers at that proficiency levels 3 and 4. As we go on to high school, levels 3 and 4, we see half of our kids are proficient at the beginning of the year, according to the STAR exam. And then by the end of the year in grade 9, 36% of the students were proficient, according to the STAR administration. In grade 10, we see that it was a little bit under half, 48% proficient at the beginning of the grade level. And by the end of the year, 51% of our students were proficient. And then finally, in grade 11, 20% of our students were proficient at the start of the year, and 28% of our students were proficient at the end of the year. Completion rates, we can see we had a lot of completion for all the grade levels, 100% in grade 6 and 99% by the end of the year. Grade 7, low to mid 90s throughout the school year. And then grade 8, mid 90s throughout the school year. And, you know, it's funny, but I'm actually really proud of these numbers. That means that we had engaged students. When I talked to other school administrators in the area, or I've been on calls, it was really a challenge to even get the students to complete the test. So I want to give a big shout out to all of our students and the teachers for making sure that we have an environment where we're able to get these exams administered in a timely manner. And then when we look at high school, we again see about 90% of our students completing the exam in 9th grade, again 90% in 10th grade, and 90% in 11th grade as well, with just one little dip in the spring administration. So those are our STAR assessments. Any other questions or comments?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
With the percentages of missing students not completing the exam, what was the contingency plan during that time to try to get the students? Calling parents, you know, what other items were done to actually get these kids? And your numbers are great. I mean, don't get me wrong. Congratulations on that. You had great participation, great completion. But what could you have done better to gotten more results? If anything at this point?
You mean in terms of the percentage of students that completed the exam?
Yes, not the results in regards to the grading of, you know, a proficient and stuff, but the percentage of students actually completing those. Like now retrospectively, you know, we're in summer, what could you have done as an organization better to try to increase those numbers from, you know, the worst, I think it looks like it's 25, at least the one I'm looking at.
Yeah, sure.
And, you know, and why did these 25% didn't participate? And now what can we do better for next year? Let's hope we're not in a pandemic. Let's hope, you know, everything is well. But what can you do better to be able to do that?
Sure. So I think we definitely called home. We had lots of different ways of kind of connecting with our parents. And I think that's why we see the numbers that we did. Just providing a consistent space for students to take that exam would be something we could improve. So maybe sometimes outside of school, if we were in a pandemic again. For this school year, I think it's going to be a lot different because we're going to be back in person. And so we'll administer the exams, and if a student's out, we'll just have to have some type of system where when they come back to school, they're able to take the exam in a timely manner. But it's going to be a different perspective because we're going to be in the building with all of the students for the entire school day, daily, Monday through Friday.
Are we still going to be using it as a progress monitoring tool?
We're going to call it a universal screener, and you'll get to learn about universal screening next week.
But we're still taking the SBAC in the spring, right?
We are.
Okay, cool.
Emily, I have a quick question for you. Why are you again, this is somebody who just graduated high school. Why are you hesitant with this exam as a teacher? Your perspective, not administration and not the why it was done. I understand now it's a 30-minute, it was done. But why are you very hesitant with this one? I mean, and it's an honest answer on this because you're the teacher, you're the one helping the students.
Sure. So it's a little bit tough because I myself have not taken the test. So I'm kind of like gleaning what I've just seen over students' shoulders type of deal. But it's not because it's only half an hour, it's not the same test every time. Does that make sense? Like you can't test all of the 8th grade standards in half an hour. You have, so the test pulls random standards from the 8th grade to test in that half an hour window. So every time you take the test, it's not the same test. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And that, I get it. I get it why. Because if it's not the same exam, nobody gets measured the same way.
Scores, yeah, comparing the test scores, it's like, it's a little bit dicey. That being said, I mean, the SBAC does the same thing, right? You take it in the test you take in the 7th grade is not the same test you take in the 6th grade, right? It tests 7th grade standards versus 6th grade standards, and you're still measuring growth from 6th grade to 7th grade. There is no perfect test. There is no perfect way to assess what actually is going on in a student's mind, like you said. I'm really wary of the fact that it's only half an hour. It's the thing that makes it great, and it's the thing that makes it hard for me to trust it.
So as a teacher in a perfect world, what would you, I mean, other than eliminating standardized testing, and that's obviously not possible, and I get it, but which one would you think would benefit not only the students? Well, actually, no, what would benefit the students? I mean, the administration and its numbers, I get it. I trust me, I do analytics for a living. I understand that. But in your perspective as a teacher, what would be the benefit for the student?
Of what?
Of the standardized testing. Which test do you think, and I get it why you guys did it the 30-minute this year, but going forward, I think, are you guys gonna switch back to the one you guys were doing before, or are you gonna keep this one?
Well, we're keeping the STAR test for at least a few years, right, Josh?
Correct.
Yeah, because it's only half an hour and it doesn't take up a ton of class time. I think it's great as additional data. I just don't want to use it as our only data point, which is kind of what we were forced to do because of the pandemic. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so I have no problem with the STAR test going forward. I just don't want to use it as our only data point. But thank you, that's a really good question.
Yes, it was. All right, any other comments regarding the STAR progress reports? Okay, let's move on to the 21-22 SABA student sports proposals.
All right, 1 second. Okay, so at our first June meeting, we had a student presentation on what they would like to see in the SABA sports program moving forward. And so this presentation is a response to those proposals. At the previous meeting, there were 6 main proposals. One was expanding the AD position, expanding the responsibilities of the AD to meet the needs of our growing sports program. The second proposal was to ensure transportation, explore further options to get students to games and look at what we can do to do that. The third was to offer additional sports and what sports could we add and what that would look like. The fourth was to begin a middle school sports program, possibly join a league to further develop our student athletes at the middle school level. 5 was to provide new uniforms and equipment, and more specifically determine the frequency in which uniforms and equipment will be purchased. And then 6th was making SABA sports an agenda item at board meetings. So tonight we're going to discuss each of these. So expanding the AD position, first I want to just go over what the AD does. So schedules, currently there are 4 unique sports: cross country, basketball, track and field, and soccer. Basketball and soccer are both, there's a girls team and a boys team. And AD ensures that all the schedules are complete. We do have, so that's one responsibility. Paperwork, making sure we get all that in, including physicals. Orientations to begin each of the 3 sports seasons. In California, there are 3 seasons: August to November, December to say March, and then March through May. Site prep, if we are a hosting team, whether it's a basketball court or soccer field, and making sure that all the necessary prep work is done there. Transportation, coordinating rides to all the games, and then ensuring that we have officials and referees at each of the matches. So those are the main responsibilities of an athletic director. Our current plan for the 2021-22 school year was included in our stipends plan that we approved at a board meeting in the spring. And it's currently for a $4,000 athletic director position based on work completed. And the options proposed by the students was to increase that to becoming either a 0.2 FTE to start off, and then eventually moving to a 0.5 FTE. So 0.2 FTE, FTE stands for full-time experience, would be 20% of the full-time role for one staff person, or 8 hours in a day. And then if we work that out, the pay will depend, vary, but be somewhere between $12,000 and $20,000. The second option would be to have a 0.5 FTE, and this would be for 50% of a role of one person as an athletic director, and this equates to 20 hours in a work week. Pay would depend on staff assigned, but range from $30,000 to $50,000. So looking at these options of where we were, or where we are with the $4,000 stipend that was approved in the spring, and the proposals, what I think might be a hybrid version of this would be to, with the AD that is eventually chosen, making sure that they have dedicated time during the week to work on these activities, and it's regular and it's uninterrupted. The specific times is going to depend a little bit on who that person ends up being. We have a few different people that we're looking at, and once that person is chosen, then we'll move forward with what that's going to look like. But I can't guarantee that there'll be a full one-day position available, because say, for example, it's the 6th grade math teacher. Well, he needs to be with his students, and we couldn't have a sub for the 6th graders for math one day a week throughout all 36 weeks of the school year. So once we have that athletic director chosen, we'll work with them, but I think the bigger idea was to make sure that they have a consistent time to be working on this. And so we will make sure to carve out time that's uninterrupted for the athletic director. Sports transportation. So when we think about sports transportation, we can think about parent transportation, rental vans, and a school bus. So looking at parent transportation, the benefits are we can get to multiple locations. So we can have the girls soccer team go one place, the boys basketball team go to another. The drawbacks are there's often work schedule conflicts. Many of our parents work full time, so it's difficult for them to be drivers. And even if they are interested, they need to get approved, which isn't overly difficult, but is a cumbersome process. And then also, it's not just getting to the matches and games, it's also getting home from the matches and games and ensuring that all the students have rides home after the games. The cost to that are minimal to none in terms of cost to SEBA. Rental vans is the option that we've used frequently in the past. And this would allow one staff member to drive up to 6 students. It reduces the need on parents, teaching staff. The drawbacks are the teaching staff needs to leave to drive students. So one thing that's challenging is when we're having multiple vans going, we're taking out somebody who maybe should be with students in a classroom, and now they're driving a set of students to a sports match. So that's one of the drawbacks with the vans. And then there's additional time commitments with having to pick up and drop off the van from a rental car location. And then we need to have a credit card there. The costs relatively minor, $200 per van per day, approximately. School bus is a third option. We could place an entire team on a school bus, or even 2 teams. Say it was the girls and boys basketball team, and they were both going to Monterey for the evening for 2 games. And that would eliminate parent need for transportation, as well as the minivans that we rent. But that's limited to one site in game. So if we were to purchase a school bus and there was a soccer game in Monterey, but there was a basketball game in Gilroy, now we're back to having to use parent transportation or rental vans if we were to purchase a school bus. We could go about using school buses as rentals and then just plan on renting a school bus for every single athletic event. In addition to purchasing a school bus, some other drawbacks that we looked at were where are we going to park it when it's not in use? Who's going to be the approved driver? If it's a full school bus, that's a special license. I did have a few people come up and say that they would be willing to get that license and would like to be the driver, which I think is amazing. It doesn't surprise me. But it's kind of the same challenge as with the rental vans. Do we want the teacher, in this case, leaving school to drive this school bus when we really want them in the classroom teaching the students? And then the bus, yeah, that's a very conservative mark, $5,000 to $40,000, probably more depending on the size of the bus that we're going to get. Insurance, driver, parking, and maintenance would be additional costs there as well. So those are the three transportation options that we would look at. I think in terms of what we're going to do for the upcoming school year, if we see that there's consistent participation in a particular sport, we could look at utilizing buses more often. But for smaller sports, I think, or smaller students with sports with lower participation numbers, we probably will stick to the rental vans. We're going to get to that in just a second. Oh yeah, so we have winter sports schedules here. So we can see here, we put these in just to kind of see what a typical winter sports season might look like, with who's where. And you can see, not always, but sometimes there's conflicts on what team is at what location. So that's where the bus could come into play. This would what transportation for January could look like if we were to get the bus. And we have February. And then additional sports options. So in addition to having cross country, basketball and soccer and track and field, additional sports we could offer include girls volleyball, girls golf, and girls tennis in the fall. Winter sports editions, I saw that surfing is an option. We could also have competitive cheer. And in the spring, we could offer boys tennis, boys golf, and swimming. And we would want to survey the students to find out the interest levels. And then once we saw that information, we could reach out and start to build a program for any one of these additional sports options. Middle school sports at SEBA. At one point in the past, prior to myself being here, there was, SEBA did participate in a middle school sports league. SEBA reached out and was told it would cost around $40,000 to participate in 2018. And it was, at the time, the decision was made to not participate in that middle school sports program. And I think one of the decision factors outside of just the cost to participate were the transportation issues. So in thinking about this, and this really applies to all of it, what we're going to do is look at similar size school, both traditional and charters, and see what schools that are about our size have really high performing sports programs, and then look at what they're doing to support their students in those sports programs and try to emulate that here at SEBA. So that's kind of where I want to start off. There was the Coyotes. I don't even know if they're still in if they're still participate or not. And that was a charter school network team that could compete against other middle school in the Watsonville area. All right, uniforms and equipment. So replacing uniforms every 3 years would be something that SEBA could commit to. Ensuring that we have both road and home uniforms available would be another thing that SEBA could absolutely commit to. And then purchasing warm-up uniforms for all teams. Daniel, do you have, when were the most recent uniforms purchased?
It depends by sport. Just looking at it right now, there are definitely at least 2 teams where we would have to purchase the uniforms, and purchasing those as well as warm-ups, I'd probably put it at $5,000 to $12,000 for all those purchases for this year alone. Moving forward, it could be anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000 a year.
And then in addition to that, we want to make one uniform item available for purchase to our students, and then we can have a replacement each year. And then always we would want to work closely with the coaches to ensure the proper equipment is available to them. Finally, SEBA sports updates at board meetings. We're going to have regular updates at the board meetings. So at the August third board meeting, we could have 80 program goals, a fall season kickoff update, and cross country update. Then at the October 5th meeting, we could talk about a winter season kickoff for soccer and basketball, and then and then debrief the cross country season. And then in the spring, in March, we could take a look at the spring season kickoff with track and field and debrief the winter season. So these were proposed updates for our SEBA Board of Directors. And we could agendize these at those August, October, and March meetings. I'll look back at sports participation. Cross country, we had 6 participants last year. Soccer, we had 19 boys and 16 girls participating. Basketball had 9 boys and 10 girls participating. Track and field had 9 students total, and that's both boys and girls. And then finally, future sports would be a TBD, but we'd want to kind of try to generate interest there. And there is overlap, like some of the students who run cross country also play soccer or basketball, and some of those students also participate in track and field.
And that was during the pandemic?
Yes.
What did the pandemic have an impact on those numbers?
It did, but not significantly so. I think the biggest drop off was in the track and field, but basketball and soccer numbers over time have remained relatively stable. Cross country definitely saw a dip compared to previous school years.
And the sports are open for any student to sign up to join?
All high school students can participate in the sports program. I think 271 was the high school number last year.
Alrighty, any comments regarding the report on the sports proposals?
There's
Christina?
a lot of comments in the chat, just FYI.
So Anna says, what about buying vans instead of school buses? I was going to ask the same question.
So vans, and I'd have to look at it again, because we wanted to rent vans that are not the minivans, but like the 15 passenger vans. But those, when we wanted to rent those, we were not allowed to do so under our insurance. And so that could be kind of an in-between, and we can revisit it. But when we looked at it before, I think they have a high tip rate, and those were not an option for schools to purchase and transport students because of the risk that they pose.
So that's not consistent with my experiences. We bought vans at both of my old charter schools. And there's a number, I don't remember the number for how many passengers it can have before you need the special license. I think it's 11 or 12.
Yeah, I think 11 or 12. It depends on the specific the axle ratio, right?
Right.
I think that's what I had seen as well.
If it's under that limit, teachers and coaches can drive those vans. We just had great luck. We had 2 vans at each of the 2 schools and never had a problem with transportation. Insurance was fairly easy to get. Maybe things have changed 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, I think, and maybe it's different if we are able to purchase the van versus renting it. So that's a great suggestion. Have we looked at sharing a bus with another district? Is that a thing? I don't know. We have not looked at quote sharing. I mean, we can rent buses, and we do regularly rent buses from PBUSD, and they charge us a rate, and that works. So that is an option for us. In terms of sharing ownership, that would be something that we would need to dig a little bit further into.
Yeah, earlier, Larry and Daniel and I were talking about Anzar I've just noticed that Anzar really has declining enrollment, and they have a whole fleet of buses that, as far as I can tell, just sit there. So I'm just wondering if there are some local districts that, you know, if they're not using it 3 o'clock on a Friday. I don't really know how insurance works with that, but that seems like a cheaper option.
Cheaper but less flexible. You know,
Yeah.
districts can be really picky about their buses.
That, and it requires them to send a driver as well. I don't think they would want one of us, or even if we had somebody approved to drive their vans, it probably would be unlikely that they'd let us do that. We rely on their drivers.
And districts are kind of unwieldy, huh? What about like another charter school in Watsonville? Like, could we go in on a bus together with them? Is that a thing?
I think that's a good idea. I've also had the experience of working with the individual bus drivers for districts. One of the biggest pain in the butts for school bus driving is getting the driver, because it does require a special license, but often those drivers have more flexibility than their districts do, and you can work out a private deal sometimes with the specific drivers, not the districts. So that can work.
I just wanted to point out that Emily had a comment in the chat box as well.
Sure. So just going down the chat box list, are you considering a new position or a blended position? It's going to depend. We'll have the posting and then we'll interview and we'll choose the best candidate. So it could be somebody independent from SEBA, or it could be a current SEBA staff member for that AD position. Bus would make sense for most teams. Boys and girls go to the same location for the game. Okay.
Yeah, I noticed that the January 13th day, we have 3 different locations for our games. So that would be one day where we couldn't do that, but there are many where that would be possible. I want to answer the question that Emily had. Says, I want to know if it's possible for SEBA to facilitate practice year round rather than just during the competitive season. I think that depends on our ability to hire the coach for the full year rather than the season, but we're also limited by our league as to when and how we can practice. So
EIF rules would
preclude start on a specific date, and the season ends on a specific date, and then after that, there are competitive rules that dictate that you can't have a coach with more than a certain number of students and doing certain types of drills, or at least having the equipment available so that we can practice on our own. I mean, I think the equipment is available. It's just a matter of setting up safe spaces for students to be able to do that on their own. Well, not on their own, but with a supervisor there. But again, the leagues do have mandates for how many people and who's there and whether or not active coaching is happening.
And I had a question on kind of going back once again to my high school years, but I don't know if things have changed and now there's either liability or legalities. Can the students do sort of like fundraising, you know, car washes or selling things to sort of contribute to the expense of either the uniforms, the equipment, or anything like that? Is that an option that SEBA could use?
Yeah, students can fundraise money for a variety of things.
Absolutely.
And that would definitely be part of the equation as we move forward with supporting our student athletes. Okay.
And do you think like an option, I mean, something that came to mind, and I don't know how would that work, but like, you know, for them to do a car wash, since they're somewhat close to a pretty busy, the school is close to a very busy intersection. Like doing a car wash at the school, would that be a possibility for the kids to do? Is that, you know, just an example?
Yeah, we could look at doing car washes, absolutely.
Okay, just curiosity. You know, I'm not saying just that, but as an example of what could be done.
So I have some concerns about the athletic director position. Do we want to talk about that now? Do we want to go back to that slide?
Sure. There we go.
So if you look at the 0.2 FTE for an athletic director, it's costing somewhere between 12 and 20, and I suspect it's closer to 20 when you factor in benefits and workers' comp and all of those hidden costs. And that's roughly 2 or 3 times as much as even the richest districts in our region spend on an athletic director. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm really, really pro athletics. I've been deeply involved in high school athletics as a player, as a coach, as an athletics administrator since 1962. And schools and districts just don't offer time off for athletic directors. The only schools that I know of that still do that are Midi or Reardon or Palma or the big, or Valley Christian. The big private schools do that. Public schools just don't do that anymore. The 2 richest schools and districts in our region, Palo Alto Unified and Mountain View Los Altos. Palo Alto Unified pays $8,700 for their athletic director. Mountain View Los Altos pays $7,100, give or take a few dollars. So having a 0.2 FTE for an athletic director for a school our size is really, really hard for me to justify. And the 0.5 FTE is, I just don't even get how we could even consider that.
Okay. Thanks, Larry.
You know, there was a time 25 years ago where schools and districts would give athletic directors full time off to do the job, and then they cut it back. And then they eventually cut it down to stipends for 2 positions, a girls and a boys athletic directors. And then they cut that off and just have 1 athletic director now. So it's been a downward slide for athletic directors for the last 25 or 30 years. And it's just unheard of now to have a 0.5 FTE for an athletic director.
Okay.
Now, that
I
said,
think if we think about it from like the thrust of what this is really going for is to make sure that we're completing all the responsibilities, that we're working to grow the program, that we're dedicating time to it consistently. And I think we just need to be smart with the time that we have. And then the specific hours that we're going to have, I think that how that's going to work out is going to depend on who the initial person is that's chosen.
so Donna, I have a question. What local public schools have full-time athletic directors? You know, I'm not familiar with Aptos and Watsonville and Pajaro Valley. What I am familiar with is Fremont Union High School District, Los Gatos, Saratoga, Palo Alto, Campbell, all of those districts. None of them have full-time athletic directors.
Mm-hmm.
Is SEBA's athletic director position more work than the average schools because we don't have facilities though?
I guess it depends on the size of the program too, as well as the facilities.
I want to push back a little bit. Like, I think there are some unique challenges here at SEBA, definitely, and not having our own site is definitely a challenge. And, you know, if you look at a large comprehensive high school, they have 17, 20 different sports that are going on throughout the school year. And so it's hard. It's kind of apples and oranges comparing the 2 positions.
Yeah. I hear that. I just, I've heard from Paulina and Donna that the hoops they have to jump through to get a field, because I have heard that it's competitive in Watson, to even land a soccer field. So I was just wondering how much of an AD's time has to be dedicated to that since we don't have our own field.
Yeah, no, that's exactly, I mean, that is right. And that is a challenge. And that's, yeah, something that we need to get better at.
All right. Thanks for the presentation. I think it's opened up even more questions than we had before. But I think it would be worthwhile to look at what the comprehensive high schools in Watsonville are offering in terms of an AD position, just to have that as a point of reference, and then look at similar schools to ours to save us, and schools with populations of around 500 students, and find out what other schools are doing. And I think you mentioned you were going to do that survey. Is that right?
Survey, I'm sorry, with regards to?
Sports programs at similar schools.
Oh, yeah, like reach out. Yes, that is kind of, so what I want to do, to go back to that, I wasn't thinking of it as a survey, but find a similarly sized school that has an outstanding sports program and see what they do and try to bring as many of those procedures back to SEBA. I think that's the best way to kind of tackle this in a meaningful way.
All righty. Any other comments or questions?
I'm sorry, who's doing that?
Admin team, I'll probably be leading the effort.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And is that like a thing that's we're gonna be able to talk about by the next board meeting, or?
The next board meeting is in 2 weeks, and we've got a lot of things going on, so it
Right.
probably won't be August board meeting, might be more looking like September.
Okay.
So,
Go ahead.
so sorry, Emily. What's a realistic timeline? I mean, I'm not sure if that's what Emily's asking or not, but what's a realistic timeline of when will this even essentially start, with the students being able to participate in sports, as well as, high achieving sports and academics and everything that needs to happen, including with transportation. There's definitely the ability to have a booster club for parents that want these children to participate in, and based on enrollment on the numbers that you showed, the transportation should not be that much of a big of an expense. If we're looking at big numbers, and what's the overall budget for the year for sports as well, and that has everything been broken down financially? This is what we have, and this is what we can spend on X, Y, and Z. Or is it something that it literally just started?
Budget and the budget that we approved in June. I don't have those numbers at our fingertips. We haven't done a cost analysis of what owning a van or bus would look like. That would be something that we could do. We will hire an athletic director to begin the school year at the end of July. Once that person's hired, we'll go over the responsibilities and talk about the issues the unique issues that SEBA has, and make sure that they're well equipped to support our families and alleviating those. And then in the terms of like reaching out to different sports programs to try and emulate that, this is going to be an ongoing process. So everyone on this call right now, I think, wants to see a successful sports program. There's nobody that doesn't want to see that. And so I think going about how we're going to do that, obviously we're not going to just do that overnight or start it in 2 weeks, but it's going to be about looking at who's available, looking at who we have in the AD position, looking at what those best practices are for schools of our size, and then bringing those back to our school. And so transportation, we will probably not have a van or a school bus purchased for the fall season. But if we see that, hey, this is one route to go, we can look at doing that, later on this year. And so I do want to clarify too, like when we talk about the transportation, it's not like there won't be any. It's like if we see, okay, there's a ton of cross-country kids and we need to get them out there, then we'll go to what we've used in the past, which is rental vans to get them to the places, or renting a bus.
Josh, I'm wondering if it seems like there's a lot of interest in this from the community, both from the students and the parents. I'm wondering, like, if it necessarily needs to be another thing directly on your plate. Like, I'm wondering if it's possible to create a committee that's maybe overseen by admin, but they're not necessarily having to do like the legwork of researching, parallel schools. Like I see some students on this call that like, I honestly think that would be an amazing opportunity for them to like create like a report that shows a successful sports program and what those components of. And so I know on some level, the laundry list of stuff that you guys are going through, just trying to get school year 21-22 started. And I'm just wondering if we can like maybe delegate some of this workload.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. I think students should definitely be part of that kind of research project. So thanks for bringing that up. And yeah, we could definitely delegate that once the school year gets going.
Cool.
So Josh, just for my own clarification, you presented two possibilities for an AD, a 0.2 and a 0.5.
No, I presented what we're currently doing, which is a $4,000 stipend, and the two proposals that were brought to us at the June board meeting.
Got it. Thank you for that clarification.
Josh, can you please clarify, is there a current staff member that's getting the athletic director stipend?
No, we have not picked an athletic director yet.
Okay.
And does it have to be a staff member or could it be a member of the community?
It can be a member of the community.
How would we employ a 0.2 member of the community if we can't do part-time?
It would have to be a stipend, correct, Josh, if it was a member of the community.
Well, no, I mean, we would have a contract, like it's like we have, yeah, that we could do this and it would be, so employees of SABA have to be paid an hourly rate if they fall under a certain income threshold. But if it is a contracted employee for this athletic director position, then we could work out a pay for that particular person.
It would be the same as a walk-on coach.
Got it.
Have you done any, sharing with the parent community to see if there's somebody out there that might be interested?
No, we have not done that. That's a good suggestion as well.
When will the position be open? What's the timeline for that to start like recruitment for a athletic director?
We'll get going with that once we start school. Like we have returning staff on Monday, and then we're going to start talking about what stipends are available, and then we'll have that posted and we'll start beginning to take applications for that position.
Other comments or questions regarding the sports program?
There is some stuff in the chat just to make sure y'all are aware of it.
Mm-hmm. Would volleyball be able to start this fall? Great question. TBD on that. So we'd have to elicit student interest and then reach out. We do not have a coach contracted for volleyball, so that would be something separate that we'd have to start up.
I copied down the chat room. Any other comments? Okay, let's move on to board training and the board retreat.
All right.
I think we took care of that earlier because Mary wanted to be involved with this part before she left.
So all we needed to do was set the date and time.
I think
yeah,
so.
we did, and we did do that.
Yep. Anything else we need to discuss regarding the board retreat then?
No, just that a proposed agenda is listed in the minute or in the agenda. So we talk about strategic plan, at a school, board expectations, etc. We also get some trainings done there, which are required annually.
Great. All righty. Any items for the next board meeting?
Right now I have staff handbook down, and then we're going to talk about options for interventions, whether or not it would be before or after school.
And then connected to the, I guess we'll be doing the head of school evaluation at the retreat, and then at the board meeting after that, address the head of school organization and head of school goals.
So when we talked about that, we did that in June. So this is coming up with goals and how you're going to evaluate me for the upcoming school year.
Okay. I better get the last year's goals evaluation.
That was the
Finished.
presentation I made where we went through a number of slides. Yeah. And I did send that to you.
Got
Yeah,
that.
but your evaluation, Josh, for last year is still.
Well,
upcoming.
which was intertwined with what the SEBA org goals were. But then the retreat is about developing all of that for this upcoming school year.
Yep, you're right. It's a separate item. But there is the last year's evaluation is still not technically complete, even though it was wrapped up in the goals.
Right, and I'm working on that. And we'll share that with Larry as soon as I get a little more work done it. Hopefully I'll be able to get that to that tomorrow. So we have the next meeting in what you said, 2 weeks?
Yeah, August 2nd, I believe.
All right.
Excuse me, August 3rd. First Tuesday.
Very good. I guess that takes care of the agenda, and thank you all for joining us, and we will adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
See you all.
Bye.